So we're back here, right here. Wampanoag, life good. Wampanoag, life good, said Metacom. His voice was low, as if he might be speaking only to himself. I repeated the word, Wampanoag, softly. I had learned that the word meant people of the dawn. Now, as dawn broke over the nearby ocean and came glancing down on the trees, I understood. That name, the word, and a fine sound. Wampanoag, life good, Metacom repeated. White people destroy. What do you mean? I said, opening my eyes. He was staring at me. We have not destroyed anything. You still live here. We live in peace, Metacom snorted, as though he did not agree. Before you come, many more people live together in our tribes. Much land for summer campgrounds in winter. White men come, rob graves, bring plague, destroy with musket fire. I remember how once the Mayflower had finally anchored in the bay last November. Many of our elders had come ashore to explore the land. They had found pots and corn and other useful things. Famished with hunger and seeing no one around anywhere, they took these things away with them. They had not known they were taking from an Indian burial ground. They had also heard the elders talk of European diseases wiping out thousands of tribe members all along the coastal lands. Though I listened to his words, I could not look at Metacom now. Instead, I grabbed a few stones and began to hurl them at the pine cones hanging from the branches above my head. When I said nothing, Metacom spoke again. Tiskamu, bow down to white man, but Metacom see everything. I recognized the name Tisquatum. That was the true name of the Indian we called Squanto. We considered him a friend, for we owed our lives to him. Squanto had shown us how to survive by teaching us to plant corn and plant beans between the rows of corn so the beans could climb up the corn stalks. He showed us how to fish and catch tasty eels. He taught us which creatures from the tide pools could be eaten and which would bring death. He spoke English better than Metacom and served as our guide and translator. Squanto had even helped us to build a peace treaty with Massasoit. As I knew Squanto's whole tribe, the Patocks, had been wiped out by disease that came from Europe. There had been thousands of them and everyone was now gone except Squanto. He had escaped this plague himself only because before it happened, he was captured as a slave and taken to Spain to serve white people. I had heard all about how he had finally managed to escape and return to his native lands here. When he arrived back at his Pawtucket village, no one was left. Now, on the very land where the village had stood, Plymouth Colony was built. It was too much to think about. I felt pounding at the back of my head. I wanted only to enjoy the peaceful moment, the fresh air, the time without any chores to do. I wished more than ever that I could stay lost in the woods forever. For 3 days, I did stay there. A wild woods animal. In that time, Metacom showed me many secrets of the deep forest. Sometimes he would disappear for hours, and I had no fear. When he was with me, he showed me how to use his bow and arrow, as well as how to build fire for myself. Then, on the evening of the third day, he told me we should soon return to the colony. for the harvest feast had been planned for 2 days. Hence, Metacom said that the elders of the colony had invited Massasoit, and 90 members of the tribe would also be coming. I was not sure this news that would I was not sure this news that we would return would make me happy now. I barely even minded the thought of my family might be frantic with worry over me. The next morning, after we had caught and cooked a wild hare, Metacom said, "Come, little brother." He had begun calling me that on the second day, and it pleased me. He stood now and kicked dirt onto our fire to put it out. "Where?" I asked. I did not move. I was afraid he would say it was time to go back. To see something," he replied, "something of great beauty." After 15 minutes of following Metacom through the trees, I could hear the sounds of falling water. We ducked under the rocky ledge and found ourselves standing high above a wide, clear pool. Beside us, and coming from somewhere high above our heads, a waterfall rained down into the pool. It sent up spray of prism of light. It sent up spray in prisms of light. "We swim," said Metacom. As soon as he said the words, I backed away. I had heard the Indians put their entire bodies into the water all the time, but I was not at all casual about it. Our custom was to bathe only once or twice a year, for to immerse oneself in the water would wash away the protective oils that coated the body. I knew, as well as any civilized person, that if these oils were washed away, disease could easily attack. I explained this to Metacom. But before I could even finish, he broke out in a gales of loud laughter. This angered me greatly. "You shall swim," he insisted. "I shall not," I replied. But Metacom took my shoulders from behind and pushed me firmly forward. Panicking, I struggled. Suddenly, all the fears of the first day returned. I wrenched myself from Metacom's grip. My foot slipped. I stumbled. Then I was falling like a diving bird straight down. The second before my body hit the water, I heard Metacom shout my name. Then I was underwater, submerged, and kicking wildly. In this place of sudden but vicious silence, thousands of glistening air bubbles flew in long cords upward toward the pool's surface, while I went down. My breeches seemed heavier than iron. My shirt tangled about my body like a death shroud. My shoes were as if two pieces of lead dragging me down, down, down. I sank like a small boulder, and then every muscle in my body relaxed. I was going on to heaven now. I realized I could not be helped. It was time. Somewhere I felt a violent pulse rip through the water, but I felt it vaguely, as if it had nothing to do with me. I was going. It did not concern me. But I did. Without warning, I was grabbed beneath the chin and under my arm. I felt a rush upward movement. In another second, my head broke the surface of the water, choking and spitting. I felt myself being placed on a bed of moss beside the pool. Metacom had saved me from my own watery burying grounds. That night I slept again under the stars of the deep of the wood. The fear had fled me, and I could not have felt more at home. Even if Metacom had not been sleeping on the other side of the small fire as he was. I was I would soon have no worries, but in the morning, I was ready to return to the colony. We had shot a young doe on the way through the woods and were bringing it as our contribution to the feast. It hung from a long pole by its legs. I walked in front as Metacom behind. We marched in the comfortable silence of trusted friends as we made our way. We had gone into the woods separately as strangers. We were coming out nearly as brothers. But there was one thing not yet answered. Metacom, I asked, turning my head back to him as we strode up the hill. The colony was now well in view. Oops. What were you doing in our storehouse? Metacom stopped, and I had stopped too. He drew a deep breath. There is talk that is in there a white man stores the plague to use against us if. Who says such things? I interrupted. It was as though it was a thought more crazy than any I'd ever heard. Again, Metacom waited. Then he named a name. I laughed from the sheer impossibility of it. Squanto would never spread such lies. I looked in storehouse to see if I can find it, he said. Under heaven, I swear to you, I replied, we have no such thing. Metacom looked doubtful. Maybe Tisquatum act like white man, no trust. As we walked on, I wondered about this. I might never know if Squanto really was, but now I was feeling like I was seeing him more through Metacom's eyes than my own. From now on, I would be watching him and everything around me differently. Making our way into the colony, we could hear the sounds of the festivities even before we saw them. Voices rose in exclamation as we appeared. My family's gaze fell upon me as though they were seeing a ghost. They came running to embrace me, all shouting wildly, tears in their eyes. It was a bounteous feast indeed. Food of all kinds was heaped upon a plate for me. I ate till I might explode. Servings of wild turkey and yams and venison. There was cod and lobster and eel pie. We had corn cakes and beans and sweetmeats. There were more food to sample than I ever had in my life imagined might be possible. When I could eat no more, I lay back against the trunk of an oak tree and watched the dancing of Massasoit's people. I looked on these people now with new eyes of deeper understanding. Metacom came and squatted beside me. It is good, little brother, he said. Peace is with us. I nodded happily, but think one thing. It will not be so for long. In days to come, the festivities will mark the mourning of my people. The white people will not remain so peaceful with what they have here. Metacom see everything, see future. I laughed a little as if Metacom were not talking sense, but I had lived in the woods. I had understood the world as he saw it, even if for only 4 days. Deep down inside my heart, I feared that he might be right.